the entire Jill Stein platform. But first, we're going to listen to AOC talk trash about Jill Stein and the Green Party. This is from the Off Topic Show.
Yo, this is a little spicy, but I have thoughts. You are the leader of your party. And if you run for years and years and years and years and years in a row, and your party has not grown, and you don't add city council seats, and you don't add down ballot candidates, and you don't add state electeds, that's bad leadership.
AOC takes a couple digital punches at Jill Stein and the Green Party.
If you have been your party's nominee for 12 years in a row, 4 years ago and 4 years before that and 4 years before that, and you cannot grow your movement pretty much at all and can't pursue any successful strategy, and all you do is show up once every 4 years to speak to people who are justifiably pissed off, but you're just showing up once every 4 years to do that, you're not serious. You're not to me, it does not read as authentic. It reads as predatory. Y'all, this is a little spicy.
Predatory.
But I have thoughts. You are the leader.
Predatory. Howie Hawkins was the 2020 candidate. Jill Stein wasn't even going to be the Green Party candidate this time around. She wanted Cornel West, but he obviously has very bad judgment problems.
And this is a little spicy, but when the media shoves down everyone's throat that all you have is the two parties to choose from, that you only have red or blue, the media doesn't ever mention the Green Party or really any other independent type parties.
No, it blacks them out.
Huh?
It blacks them out or makes fun of them.
Yeah.
Or,
so when you shove that down everyone's throat, and they get a lot of their news initially from just the general media, then they're not aware that they have another choice, a better choice.
Better fucking choice.
Than saying that you're going to be a good leader and then getting into the party and your mouth is shut all of a sudden. I wonder who's done that.
Yeah. You want a mama bear to like you. Where did that get you?
Now people have TikTok and other things, which is why it's going to get banned, because people are seeing what your party is allowing to happen, which is called a genocide. You realize that? You remember that? Do you tweet about any of them? Do you know their names? Any of them? I'm waiting. Can you please start listing the names of the Palestinians that have been murdered in this genocide that your party, that you keep your mouth shut in, which makes you complacent in genocide? We want a better choice. The people
like Kamala wasn't even elected.
People now get to see that there is a different choice.
I want Democrats to be better.
They're not going to be. They're not going to be. They're just not. They're still capitalistic sellouts. That's the truth. Where's our Medicare for all? Where is it? Those drugs that you have gotten down, because it is now considered a loss for the pharmacy, a lot of the pharmacies are not stocking those medications. So now the patients that need them aren't getting their medications, period. So good fucking job.
You need to tell about your leader? She was for inmate prison firefighters. She was a cop.
She laughs about putting people in jail for smoking weed and laughs about smoking weed herself. Wow. Hypocrite. Oh, I want a hypocrite as a president. Yay. I don't want that representing females.
Your leader was for Medicare for All in 2019, and when she entered the 2020 Democratic primaries, she backed off of that.
No, she likes to flip-flop. We all know that.
She's just word salad after word salad.
She's a Democrat. She's just another sellout.
That's your leader. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our leader, Jill Stein.
This is from Jill Stein's website. It's her platform. We need an economy that works for working people, not just the wealthy and powerful. To reverse surging inequality and insecurity, we need an economic bill of rights establishing the rights to a living wage job, guaranteed livable income, housing, healthcare, childcare, lifelong education, secure retirement, utilities, healthy food, and clean water, so that all of us are guaranteed the basic security for a good life that can reach our highest potential. A Jill Stein administration will Guarantee lifelong free public education for all institutions of learning, including trade schools and pre-K through college and graduate school. Abolish all student debt for 43 million encumbered Americans. Let's face it, a lot of our generation and the generation before got sold on that one. That if you got a degree, then it was guaranteed to make like a 6-figure job no matter what, and then they got out of college and they all had to have like 15 years of experience and nobody would hire them. And then they're just in debt. So a lot of people got sold on that one.
Sure.
That one's messed up. I mean, I'm for both of them, but you can come
Well, they're a predatory loan industry.
Oh, bad. So bad.
Well, a lot of it's federal loans. But the private loans are extremely
predatory, and we allow it.
stonks.
We're not supposed to, right? Wasn't there something about not allowing predatory loans?
Trump did away with that.
Why did I even ask? All right, yeah, I'm behind. I forget things. Okay. Increase and equalize public school funding. In the privatization of public schools. Guarantee free childcare. Reduce taxes on incomes below the real median income of $75,000 per household. Strengthen Social Security by removing the artificial cap on the Social Security tax for the wealthy and apply the Social Security payroll tax to all income, including capital gains and dividends. Remove loopholes that allow foundations to hide wealth from taxation. Institute strong progressive taxation for incomes and wealth and increase the estate tax. Guaranteed affordable, efficient utilities through a transition of all utilities to public, not-for-profit ownership. Now, that one I think is huge, because if we had something along that lines, then there would be no deaths during the winter when the electric company decided to go ahead and turn off your power during like COVID and everything like that. And a lot of people, before they put in that not allowed to
Or
do
not
it.
have the proper infrastructure to winterize their grid.
Yeah. So that would be a huge thing.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
I mean, imagine never having to worry about the lights being shut off. Never having to worry about not having heating or air conditioning. That just being a basic right to your life. Like that is, that's huge. Just like they would do it for like.
they would be investing in people instead of industries.
And they could put like actual good money to use instead of murdering people. You could save people's lives.
Think about your supporting your neighbors instead of wars abroad. Wouldn't that be great?
Free high-speed internet across the U.S. with rural broadband via fiber optics. Imagine if we would have had that during the pandemic as well. And, everybody who had to have their kids at home doing homeschooling could have had free high-speed internet instead of an additional cost. And those who work from home also could have free high-speed internet instead of an additional cost to your life. That would be, that's amazing. And it is a utility, honestly. Internet is a part of a majority of our daily lives. So it is a necessity to, for example, a lot of the times, pay your bills. It's how you communicate with your doctor, because you can't call your doctor or see them in person. It's through like a MyChart type situation. Put too big to fail banks into public ownership as public utilities. Currently the 4 largest banks, which own 25% of all banking assets. Create non-profit public, state, and local banking. Implement postal banking. Replace corporate trade agreements with global fair trade agreements. Prohibit financial capital from buying up single-family homes and renting housing stock.
That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be great for all of us. Ban corporate stock buybacks.
That would be amazing. That would be so amazing.
Stock buybacks. But that's instead what like Boeing and stuff does, right?
Yeah, they buy. Yeah.
Break up monopolies in big tech and elsewhere. Tax the ultra wealthy and giant corporations heavily.
The Wall Street parties have rigged the economy against working people. Over 60% of adults in the U.S. are now living paycheck to paycheck. For 50 years, real wages have stagnated while worker productivity and corporate profits have soared. Inflation fueled by corporate profiteering has driven up the cost of living, eating away at the modest wage gains working people have won. We need a government that works for working people, not elite wealthy donors. It's time to restore and expand workers' rights, support unions, cooperatives, and worker ownership, and ensure that working people enjoy the full fruits of their labor. A Jill Stein administration will pass the $25 minimum wage, indexed to cost inflation and productivity growth, which is higher with special consideration for geographic locations where cost of living greatly exceeds other places.
So, as far as with the minimum wage, I know a lot of the argument against the minimum wage is, well, why does somebody who flips a hamburger deserve to make more than I do? Well, that's the thing. Because they're a person and they deserve to live their lives comfortably as well. They don't deserve to struggle. We all deserve to work a maximum of one job.
If you work 40 hours a week, you deserve to be able to have enough to live.
Yes.
And what's $25 an hour now anyway? What does $25 buy you at the grocery store? What is it? Nothing. And the cost of living goes up every year, and the minimum wage is $7.25. So they fucking lie to us all the time.
It's just something to complain about so that we have one more thing to turn us against each other, so we don't pay attention to what the Dems and the Republicans are doing behind our backs. Like funding genocides. Like fucking up our healthcare system.
Mm-hmm.
Like cutting off our tax deductions but giving them to the wealthy still. Well,
yeah, we're still in a regressive tax in this nation. And none of it's been adjusted for inflation. People are getting
Angry.
killed out there. People are getting killed out there right now, making as much as they've ever made in their whole life, and it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Everything's so fucking high. Guaranteed livable income above poverty. Guarantee housing as a human right. Implement universal rent control. Increase federal support for worker-owned cooperatives. Expand and defend workers' right to unionize to include domestic, agricultural, and so-called gig workers. Ensure worker representation on corporate boards, co-determination at 50%. Giving voter rights and pension funds to the workers. Repeal the Taft-Hartley Act and end the right to work for less laws. Federalize workers' compensation to standardize and ensure full funding for workers' comp. Close the pay gap and end wage discrimination based on race, gender, and other factors. Pass a federal jobs guarantee to end unemployment. Pass the Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights. Pass the Wage Theft Prevention and Recovery Act. End the Landrum-Gariffin Act restrictions that bar unions from hiring some formerly incarcerated people. Eliminate the sub-minimum wage loophole in the Fair Labor Standards Act. Create a national solidarity fund funded by a 1 cent per worker hour tax, paying stipends to workers who are striking or locked out.
That's cool.
Encourage sectoral bargaining through the Department of Labor and National Labor Relations Board. Utilize civil asset forfeiture against companies guilty of violating workers' protections. Federally mandate and fund 3 weeks of paid sick leave, 8 weeks of paid vacation per year, and 1 year parental leave for all new parents. Wow. Ban at-will employment by requiring just cause to terminate employment. Unionize all federal employees. Commit to veto any legislation that breaks strikes.
The 1 year parental leave, I want to point out how that says 1 year parental.
Not just maternal or paternal.
Yes, that means both. That means both parents.
That's
that is also going to include, which as most people know, if they've looked at the parental leave stuff, it usually includes adoption as well, because you are a new parent. So adoption is still becoming a new parent. So that would help. As somebody who's had a child, I know that going back to work in just that short time is hard. I mean, it would be much better to stay home with your kids for at least that first year. That'd be amazing. That's amazing. Imagine having that first year. That would have
helped a lot.
But I was still wounded. I still was changing bandages and stuff like that. But you have to go back to work because you have to go back to work, and it sucks. There is a housing crisis across the United States. Over 600,000 people were experiencing homelessness in 2023, a record high. Millions more are housing insecure. Rental and housing costs have skyrocketed in recent years. Corporations are buying up land and housing while developers prioritize luxury housing unaffordable to most people. The Wall Street parties and the developers that fund them have completely failed to meet our housing needs. Housing is a human right. We need to end homelessness, support tenants and home buyers, and massively invest in public housing to provide high quality, affordable homes for all. A Jill Stein administration will end homelessness and housing insecurity with a homes guarantee, nationally adopt housing first practices, fund social housing as part of the Real Green New Deal to build at least 15 million green union-built, publicly owned homes over the next 10 years, support a universal tenants' Bill of Rights, direct the Department of Labor to assist with the establishment of a national tenants union, implement universal rent control and a prohibition on excessive rental deposits, eliminate credit checks from rental applications, impose taxes on unoccupied homes, a vacancy tax, and invest rental homestay properties to curb speculation. Expand house choice initiatives and provide full funding to all existing project-based rental assistance contracts. Repeal the Fair Cloth Amendment so that the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, can build public housing again. Prohibit predatory lending, require clearly listed mortgage costs and risks, and no fine print. Expand HUD and the U.S. Department of Agriculture rural development programs for first-time home buyers with down payment assistance, direct guaranteed loans, and pre-purchase housing counseling. Reinvigorate federal housing programs that build publicly owned housing for families, for the elderly, and for people with disabilities. Expand and protect the homeowner mortgage interest benefit and eliminate the second home and yacht loopholes.
I like the prohibit predatory lending.
Oh yes. Can you imagine what it would be like knowing that you're guaranteed to be able to buy a house in your future, instead of all of us that feel like that's probably never going to happen, and that the only way we might be able to own a home is if our parents are able to will that to us? Imagine getting to know that you will get to buy a home. Just don't build by the water. Just stop building by the water. Just stop. That's all I have to say about that one.
Have you seen hurricanes, bro?
Yeah, just
hurricanes lately.
Just stay away from them. Yeah, just don't live by the water. That's my best advice there.
Our healthcare system is in crisis. The United States spends more on healthcare than any other high-income country. Worst health outcomes, including the lowest life expectancy at birth and the highest rate of people with multiple chronic diseases. 25 million people were uninsured in the U.S. in 2023. Many of those who are insured still can't afford healthcare due to huge out-of-pocket costs. Researchers estimate this lack of adequate healthcare led to over 330,000 excess deaths from COVID-19. The Wall Street parties are funded by the insurance industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and other big healthcare profiteers to perpetuate this failed system that puts profits over people. Healthcare is a human right. We need a universal healthcare system that is equitable, comprehensive, free at the point of service, and accessible to every single person in the U.S. A Jill Stein administration will immediately implement national improved Medicare for all as a precursor to establishing a UK-style national healthcare service, which will replace private hospital, private medical practice, and private medical insurance with a publicly owned, democratically controlled healthcare service that will guarantee healthcare as a human right to everyone in the United States. That's fucking awesome. Cancel all medical debt. That's fucking awesome too. Advance reproductive rights and codify Roe v. Wade.
Please.
Pretty awesome. I mean, I think Bill stuff earlier, but you know. Ensure the U.S. healthcare system operates with full protection, respect the inclusion of human rights for all, including women and 2SL LGBTQIA+ people, people with disabilities, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Restore public trust in the government's medical agencies and institutions by enforcing audits, transparency, and oversight in the internal processes. Restore confidence in the FDA, CDC, and other regulatory boards by 1. Closing the revolving door between corporations and regulatory boards, and 2. Getting corrupting big money out of politics by adopting public financing of elections. Hell yeah. Expand public funding and phase out private corporate funding of medical and pharmaceutical research conducted in public health agencies, public universities, and medical schools. Ban patents where the research and development has been paid for by the taxpayers via public colleges, the NIH, the CDC, and other government entities. That's amazing. Restore funding to all medical government agencies, including the Health and Human Services, the National Institute of Health, and the Center for Disease Control. take the pharmaceutical industry into public ownership. Fuck yeah, and democratic control. Big Pharma has failed to serve the public interest in an industry awash in private profit as it gouged consumers with monopolistic pricing in a business model centered on addictive opioids and patent-protected medicines. It's time to ensure the production of life-saving medicines that millions rely on with the production as public goods. Eliminate healthcare inequities and gaps in all disadvantaged communities by investing in local clinics and community hospitals. Establish a federal community care agency to provide community-based support, long-term in-home and in-community care and visitation care to seniors and to people with disabilities. Ensure fair compensation for home caregivers. Guarantee long-term care for all patients in their home and community. Prohibit the keeping of people's possessions by assisted living facilities after death. That's fucked up. Eliminate electronic visit verification and other burdensome and discriminatory compliance requirements and enact protections against healthcare surveillance. Offer responsible and transparent end-of-life care to those who want
Hey,
it.
what?
That's euthanasia.
Yay.
Everybody wants to die.
No, look, I was talking about that the other day. I do feel like those people that are at the end of life, or if you are chronic depressed, if it's just something that you were just absolutely adamant on with counseling, as long as everything, you're of sound mind and this is your decision, I think your life is your decision. It's better than your loved ones finding you hanging from the rafters.
It offers closure.
You get to have kind of like a funeral. I've seen them before. And you don't have to have those last 5 years of life writhing in fucking pain while they refuse to give you pain medication because of the opioid crisis. You can make the choice to go out while you still are you, or like Alzheimer's. People understand there's a part to their lives where they're not going to be them, where they're going to essentially revert to a baby. And if they don't want to do that, they have a right.
Right.
So yeah, I believe in abortion all the way up until end of life. Because you can abort yourself after you're born. I'm sorry, because they're aborting babies after they're born. No, they're not.
That's infanticide. That's illegal.
What, you mean they're sometimes babies are born dead because you won't allow them to have an abortion that could save both their lives and, make it to where the mom could move forward and have another baby. Instead, you make her carry it for 9 months because it's still technically growing, even though it's brain dead, and you're going to make her go through the trauma of birthing a half-bodied baby that's not going to survive.
Yeah, that shit happens. And like stone petrified babies and like babies without heads and like rape and section, like
Well, when you don't have abortion rights to protect you, that's what you're forcing on people. So you're forcing that kind of trauma.
Why do we always talk about abortion? Oh my God. Can we just go one day without talking about abortion?
Because it's such a huge thing. Well,
it's not funny. Respect bodily autonomy and personal freedom and choice in medical treatments, including the right to dignified assisted death. Fund and support research and development of treatment for rare diseases. Federal legalization and funding of cannabis medicinal research. Launch an urgent national program to rebuild the U.S. pandemic response. I'm not reading all that. Address long COVID. That's important.
Ensuring those affected by long COVID are protected in their workplace and their needs for housing, healthcare, and economic security are met, and fully fund research into the causes, prevention, and treatment of long COVID. Just because, like you said, that is important because we're finding out that
long COVID fucks you up. You don't want it. Wear a mask.
Imagine if, Democrats did this. Like, actually did it. Didn't just talk about it.
Because they have too many special interests.
Yeah.
They have too many technocrats. They have too many corporate Democrats. And that's why they won't do Medicare for all. That's why they won't do like half the things that the fucking base wants them to do.
That's why they virtue signal. And remember what she did for that.
Mm-hmm.
She virtue signaled. All she did. Because that's all they do.
I care about policy. This is all about policy.
Because what policies do
Democrats are going to support genocide and shit. That's their policy. And that's not my policy.
Actually, I think if we had Joel Stein as a president, we wouldn't get into a war. Our democracy is on life support. Belief in our political system is at historic lows, and the number of Americans who feel that neither establishment party represents them is at a record high. Researchers have found that today's U.S. government is an oligarchy where policies are determined not by the will of the people, but by the demands of corporate elites. The Wall Street parties have systematically concentrated power in the hands of their wealthy donors, locking out the people from a rightful place at the decision-making table. Full and meaningful participation in democracy is a human right. We need to revive our democracy with a full spectrum of reforms to empower the people, including real choice on the ballot, because without freedom of choice in election, there is no democracy. My back is on fire.
Fire.
A Jill Stein administration will replace the exclusionary two-corporate party system with an inclusive multi-party democracy through ranked choice voting and proportional representation, implement ranked choice votings for all elections nationwide, implement proportional representation for all legislative elections, work to overturn Citizens United and Buckley versus Vallejo and abolish corporate personhood by constitutional amendment, institute full public financing of elections, get the corrupting influence of private money out of politics and put the people back in, abolish the Electoral College and elect the president via national popular vote using ranked choice voting, support a modern Voting Rights Act including nonpartisan redistricting commissions and same-day voter registration nationwide, restore the preclearance provision of the Voting Rights Act, ensure a constitutional right to vote, and restore voting rights to all felons. Yeah, I mean, of course I do think felons should, everybody has a right to vote, yeah. And just because you went to jail over some chumped up marijuana charge, Kamala, doesn't mean that you should have your right to vote taken from you. Pass automatic voter registration, AVR, nationwide. Make Election Day a federal holiday. Can we do a federal paid holiday? I'm just saying. That would be more of an incentive to show up to. If you actually voted and could prove that you voted, then you get paid for the day of voting. Expand polling locations and make free vote by mail an option for all elections and expand polling locations. Yeah, why are they all in churches and schools? Is that the only public location that you got? Sorry. End all discriminatory voting laws and the purging of voting rolls. Repeal Shelby County versus Holder. Allow those who are under supervision or incarcerated to vote in elections and be counted in the districts they resided in before incarceration. Eliminate gerrymandering by enacting proportional representation. Repeal discriminatory anti-democratic ballot access restrictions designed by the establishment parties to suppress competition. Expand initiative, referendum, and recall powers to every state and nationally. Ensure open debates on public channels, including all ballot qualified candidates. Provide free public airtime for all ballot qualified candidates. Oppose censorship by both the government and big tech corporations, and defend press freedom by applying antitrust laws to media conglomerates. Expand freedom of information laws and whistleblower protections. Protect the free internet and net neutrality. Safeguard election integrity with hand-counted paper ballots and routine post-election audits. Lower the voting age to 16.
Why not?
Grant immediate statehood for the District of Columbia. How is that not already a thing? Sorry. Ensure self-determination for Puerto Rico and other colonial territories still under U.S. rule. Oh, like take care of them.
No, let them decide whether they want to be a U.S. state or not.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
I think that's fair. If we don't claim them and help them, then they have the right to decide if they want to secede.
They have the right to self-determine.
Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. Replace partisan oversight of elections and the presidential debates with independent, nonpartisan election commissions. Increase the number of Supreme Court justices from 9 to 18, with 18-year term limits staggered so that one seat opens per year. That's interesting. Require a supermajority of 2/3 of the Supreme Court for judicial review of federal laws. Enact a binding code of ethics for all judges, including Supreme Court justices. Prohibit lobbying of any kind by former members of Congress.
Yes.
Ban stock trading by legislators.
Yep.
Ban government contractors from donating to political campaigns. Prohibit Congress from giving themselves any benefits they do not give to the people. So would that include like how they give themselves like insurance and like how they give themselves like like a pension afterwards and stuff like that. Okay, just clarity. Support and fund participatory budgeting projects to engage the public in policy decisions. Create a federal Department of Equity to ensure that design and implementation of all policies, including climate policies, are equitable as opposed to the historic victimization of poor and marginalized communities. And that was it. So as far as my opinion, so the voting age to 16, the way that I could see that going in a positive way would be under the circumstances that we are educating at a school level about politics. Now, I know we learn politics at a certain age, and I know you can take political history and all that kind of stuff, but I mean, like, current, these are the candidates running, these are the things that they're running on, like, kind of preparing them, because they're at 16, they're, depending on where you're at, you're still in school, you're still living with mom and dad, you may not quite understand the full scope of voting at that age. So I think that we should educate at a school level at that age for that to work. That is my thought.
So
a non-bias education, like this is how government works, like starting it over, because look, I forgot all that shit by the time I hit high school, and I didn't have to learn it again. So
unless you want to lower the adult age to 16, what I would suggest is an aptitude test for 16 to 18 to prove that you know what you're talking about and you know about the candidates enough, as well as any other American, which is not a whole lot.
how about
so if you want to vote, you'd be able to vote.
Bar?
You'd be able to vote with just a little bit of research. And then I also think that there should be a cap on the age that you get to vote. I think after 75, you don't get to vote anymore. How about that?
I would say that if you do something like that,
you have to take an aptitude test to make sure you're still up with it, dude.
Okay, yes. Okay.
If you believe nothing but lies and you're just nothing but fake news, sorry, you can't vote.
I'm just saying, because like they still should have a right to vote about their like social security, if nothing else. Like, if nothing else, they should have a right to still vote about their social security. But you're right. I think at that age, it would be the same thing as a younger age, an aptitude test. Though aptitude tests, I think, could be good across the board for everyone to get their voter registration card. You can get it, take it there, take it online. I don't know. I mean, people can cheat. But, you know, I think there should be a way to try to make sure that people are of sound mind, so they're not being coerced. So they're not going in with a healthcare worker who's telling them to vote for this candidate, but they're not even really sure what the hell they're doing or where they are. You know what I mean? Like, you can still use people. They used to do that. They used to fucking drug people up and force them to the ballots to vote. We've talked about it. That's possibly what happened to Einstein, or not Einstein, Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm just saying.
Not true, but that's a theory.
Yeah, a theory of what could have happened to him. So.
What do I know? Like, my demographic lives to, on average, about 58 years. So I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, old white men. That's when you guys like get everything. That's when you get everything.
That's not my demographic.
Old and white.
Mentally ill or schizophrenics.
Oh, that's what you meant.
58.
Well, see, yeah, I just wanted to talk about the 16, because I wouldn't have trusted me to vote at 16 because I didn't know about politics, because I didn't care at 16 because I felt like it didn't affect me. So what does it matter? That's not the mindset I want a 16-year-old to have when they go vote, because then they're just going to vote for whoever their parents tell them to, or who their friends say. You know what I mean? I want them to be able to have an actual opinion.
Their dad's probably voting on some like low information bullshit. So
that's
what's the fucking difference?
I want them to be educated enough to.
I know, but like their dad is dumb as fucking rocks, for example, but he's old enough to vote. And what if their kid's more educated than they are? And that doesn't really make sense, does it?
Well, that's also where I said an aptitude test across the board to get your voter card, but that would also
not across, you can't do that across the board,
right?
Because that's like Jim Crow shit. So you can't.
Yeah, it would disgruntle people from wanting to vote, because who wants to go take an SAT just to vote for a candidate when you're going to get the same stupid shit, red or blue? I would.
It would be biased as fuck. It'd be like, which candidate is the socialist, communist piece of shit, tanky? Like, yeah, it's Bernie Sanders. And they'd be like, oh, I guess you get to vote. Or like, which one of the candidates is a lying felon who lies about everything?
That sounds like a car commercial. Huh?
Well, which one of the camera? She's not. Is she Indian? Is she black?
How can you be both? What?
Just mark both, and then you get to vote.
Hey, I hate to tell you this.
She can be both.
She could be something else too.
I'm Indian and I'm German.
I'm Indian and European, Irish, something or the other.
I
Something
was
Canada.
trying to do like the most right wing, like stupid thing I could think of. And it's just what Trump said recently. I don't know.
I know. Well, that's why I was like, hey, she can also be something else.
Yeah, she could be.
Watch her come out and be like, I'm also part Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
Damn.
15.
She changed again. Number
Whoa.
3. What are you? What can you be? She's a chameleon.
Nah, she's too many things.
Kamala Chameleon. She's too many things. I can't even count to 3.
We call the United States the land of the free.
Sorry.
But we have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world, with over 2.3 million people in federal, state, and local prisons and jails. Instead of addressing root causes of inequality and injustice, today's system of policing, prisons, and criminal justice have been designed by the Wall Street parties and their wealthy elite backers to enforce social economic hierarchy that is systematically racist and classist. We need to end mass incarceration, police brutality, and systemic injustice. A Jill administration will guarantee as a human right to restorative criminal justice system that treats every one of the over 2.3 million people in federal, state, and local prisons and jails with respect, dignity, and compassion, with the primary goal of re-engaging them with their families and communities. A Jill Stein administration will ban private prisons and detention centers,
Yes.
abolish the death penalty, end mass incarceration, and build a system centered on restorative justice. Fully legalize cannabis for recreational and medicinal use with similar restrictions to alcohol.
Fair enough.
Release nonviolent drug offenders from prison, remove drug offenses from records, and guarantee pre- and post-release support. Ensure drug treatment on demand. Begin the process of legalizing hallucinogens, LSD, psilocybin, and other related substances, and fund studies on their medicinal benefits. Begin the process of decriminalizing personal possession of hard drugs. Treat drug misuse as a health problem, not a criminal problem. Increase the number of public defenders and ensure a reasonable caseload and good pay. Ban mandatory minimum sentences and 3 strike laws. Abolish unpaid and underpaid prison labor. Unlike AOC's endorsed candidate, Kamala.
Yeah, this would probably let most of the people she incarcerated out.
Yeah, this would be bad for California if they lost their
Oh gosh.
slave labor for fires. It's like it saves the state over $100 million not paying them.
The only good part, and she didn't have anything to do with it. The only good part to that is that once they are out, if they did do the firefighting, they are able to work at the fire.
Not in the article I read.
Oh, did they change it?
They weren't offered post. They couldn't be a firefighter after they got out.
Oh,
Even though they knew how. Even though they did everything the professional firefighters can do, they could not become one themselves.
I thought that they were going
The only good thing that comes out of this
is the fires are getting
is the
fought.
fact that every day that they fight fires and they go to fire camp is 2 days off their sentence.
Oh. Well,
That's the good thing about it.
But still, 2 days off your sentence for risking your life is not necessarily.
Risking your life for
It's not even
cents on the
necessarily.
dollar.
It's not.
It's
Yeah.
$1 a
it's
day,
not,
$1 an hour, $1 a day. I don't remember, but it's something stupid.
Yeah, it's not a good. It's not a good trade. I mean,
I mean,
we need firefighters.
trading
but
time for money, trading.
lives.
It's slave. It's not many. The money's not even a factor. It's just time off their sentence. Mandate and enforce higher standards for living conditions in prisons. Establish community control of police with oversight boards empowering to audit police departments, issue subpoenas, remove officers, and block hiring of offending officers. And cash bail, fines, and fees that disproportionately impact poor and working class people. Eliminate all cop city type police training facilities that militarize policing and teach dangerous and abusive policing practices. End qualified immunity for police and prosecutorial immunity. Federalize all police misconduct investigations. Fund state and national police misconduct data collection systems. End the militarization of the police. End training of U.S. police on occupation-style policing by Israeli Defense Forces. End civil asset forfeiture for private citizens. Ensure the funding of community-based youth programs as a deterrent to both petty and violent crime and to reduce interactions with the police. Investigate and prosecute sexual violence, kidnapping, and human trafficking. Fight corporate white-collar crime with resources proportional to its economic impact. End warrantless mass surveillance. Pardon whistleblowers and political prisoners. End the epidemic of gun violence with common sense gun safety laws. Kamala the cop.
Yeah, so of course she's probably for the death penalty. Also, I think privatized prisons, whoever thought that was
A good idea.
a Jill Stein administration will guarantee as a human right the sovereignty of the indigenous people of the Turtle Island, today's USA. We recognize the history of broken treaties, stolen and occupied lands, and the desecration of the indigenous way of life. So our policies aim to redress harm through restorative justice. A Jill Stein administration will honor all existing treaties with indigenous nations, ensure free, prior, and informed consent for any and all activity on tribal sovereign land, establish a federal land back commission, create a task force of tribal nations leaders to assess their needs for infrastructure, resources, education, and economic development, support a Truth and Reconciliation Commission and a reparations plan to address indigenous peoples' economic disposition, amend the federal regulations to streamline the recognition process of tribal nations, Native Hawaiian Nation, and other Pacific and Caribbean islanders, increase appointments to tribal liaison positions, boards, and commissions to ensure representation on all policies impacting tribal nations, enforce the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People to require tribal consent for granting construction permits on treaty lands, waterways, and usual and accustomed areas, prohibit all activities on sovereign territories without free, prior, and informed consent, defend tribal rights to regulate and manage their environment's natural resources, mandate all property tax revenues from tribal reservation lands be shared with the tribes, remove policies and practices that create barriers in upholding Native voting rights in all levels of government, protect Native religious freedoms, declare the second Monday in October as the federal holiday Indigenous Peoples Day. That's cool. Fund the Indian Health Service and establish at least one IHS clinic in each state. Increase and expand community health centers and behavioral and mental health services for Native youth. Establish an adequately funded medical facility in all reservations. Ensure the Department of Education fully funds and includes tribal sovereignty curriculum developed by tribal leaders in all states. Provide funding for judicial training on the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978 to eliminate the loss of Native children's ties and identities to their families, cultures, and homelands. Improve and align government policies and efforts, including data collection, to appropriately identify and classify American Indian, Alaska Native, and multiracial students. Expand funding for tribal compact schools, and address the disproportionate rates of dropout, expulsion, and suspension rate of Native students at the K-12 level. Expand access to tribal colleges and universities, Native studies programs in mainstream colleges and universities. Officially recognize children lost to adoption under the Indian Relocation Act of 1952. Tribal members who were disenrolled during the U.S. Indian Tribes Termination Policies, 1940 to mid-1960, prior to the enactment of Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978, and reunify them with their tribes and families. That was a big one. Ensure the rights of tribal nations to investigate and exercise criminal jurisdiction over non-native citizens who commit domestic or sexual violence on tribal lands in accordance with the Violence Against Women Act, VAWA. Maintain and authorize the VAWA to fund and expand the specific tribal nations provisions, such as judicial training, improve and fund Native lands justice systems to facilitate prosecution of non-natives accused of serious crimes, ensure correct Native classification of missing and murdered Native women in the federal records, increase tribal, federal, state, and local cooperation to end the crisis of missing and murdered Native women, commission a report on the pipeline culture as an intrinsic factor in the missing and murdered Indigenous women crisis and mandate oil companies fund resources for crisis prevention, improve state federal tribal relations to avoid bias and discriminatory policing through law enforcement cross-culture education with tribal nations, Expand funding of urban Indian health organizations to enable them to address the health needs of Native Americans in urban areas who may not have access to tribal health facilities. Oh, here's IHS. Fund Indian Health Services, or IHS, trust responsibility for urban Indians, so IHS funds can never be taken from the federally recognized tribal allotment to fund urban Indian healthcare. Address the disproportionately high rates of homelessness among urban Indians. Halt gentrification in tribal and poor communities that prices people out of their communities. And help states develop and fund urban Indian liaison offices to improve community relations. Those are all really, really good policies as well. When we had talked about this previously regarding like the Native Americans and the controlled burns, and like white people coming over and being like, why are you burning the land, and stopping them, and then wildfires got out of control. So like they knew how to do controlled burns, they knew how to tend to the land, they know how to do all of that because they lived here and they learned here because you placed them in places where you thought they wouldn't grow shit, and then they grew shit. So yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. Sorry. A little Oklahoma. Say my name.
Say my name, say my name.
Yeah, that popped in my head as soon as I said it too.
A Jill Stein administration will guarantee, as a human right, reparations to the descendants of African slaves for the historic crime of enslavement. Reparations is a cornerstone of the Black agenda, but reparations is far from the only policy needed to begin to redress what has been stolen from the Black community for over 400 years. Scholars and activists who have studied and formulated propositions for reparations itself have put the minimum cash value of reparations at $12 trillion to be paid to those who claim legitimate descendancy from enslaved blacks prior to the Civil War. This number is derived not only from the stolen labor prior to 1865, but also from the re-engaged promise of Field Order 15, commonly referred to as 40 acres and a mule, which was never made good upon. We don't need any further debate on whether reparations should be paid. They should, without question, as they were in 1988 to those impacted by World War II Japanese internment camps. The Stein administration will confer with the Black community leaders on who qualifies, how they qualify, how much they will be paid in cash, and how those payments will be made. Those are other policies essential to the overall Black agenda, as slavery was not the only historic crime against the Black community in America. We recognize both historic and existing racism in America. While it has been addressed in legislation such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964, to this day, an end to systemic racism has never been realized. Many of these essential policies, such as universal health care, immigration policing, and free public college education, are addressed in other areas of this platform. Furthermore, it should be noted that the Black agenda is a progressive agenda. In addition to ensuring reparations, a Jill Stein administration will direct all federal agencies to consider and include race and ethnicity as part of all their initiatives and other programs implemented with federal dollars. Overturn the harmful Alexander v. Sandoval Supreme Court decision that currently increases the burden for or eliminates private right of action against entities that violate Title VI and other mandates contained in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Promulgate a moratorium on all proposed cop cities and end federal investments in such facilities. Establish a national office for civilian oversight committees to ensure greater transparency and accountability for civilian law enforcement departments. Establish a multi-agency federal returning citizens task force to assist and provide resources for the formerly incarcerated in an effort to expedite their journey back to a full citizen status, including but not limited to immediate restoration of voting rights in most cases. Increase investment in historically Black colleges and universities, and leverage the power of the federal government to enforce states to compensate state-run land grant HBCUs the more than $13 billion they are owed. Increase investments in programs to support Black-owned businesses. Ensure that a universal single-payer healthcare system addresses and resolves the health outcome disparities for the Black community, and in particular for Black women. Eliminate food deserts, where fresh produce and food sovereignty is largely unavailable, a condition which disproportionately impacts Black communities. Work with Congress and federal agency to codify the Justice for Black Farmers Act. Eliminate white nationalists from police forces by federal law, and ensure white nationalist group activities are routinely monitored due to white nationalist violence being the greatest single source of domestic terrorism. Ensure the Office of Civil Rights is fully funded, staffed, and fulfills its obligation to protect the civil rights of marginalized communities. Restore Section 4B and Section 5 of the 1965 Voting Rights Act and permanently certify the entire law. Address and ameliorate the legacy of redlining through programs that deliver recompense for Black homeowners whose home values are adversely and disproportionately impacted to this day by this systemically racist practice. Federal moratorium on new construction of fossil fuel infrastructure and other polluting operation in or proximate to Black and other environmental justice communities. Massive reinvestment from policing and prison into social, economic, and other programs that lead to direct community benefits. Establish a federal commission to eradicate the lead pipes and tainted water crisis, impacting cities like Flint, Michigan, within 1 year I take office. That would be amazing. Fix all the water pipes. We're all dying, guys.
I did have something to say on one part because I laughed, and I laughed because you were saying that the number one domestic terrorism is freaking white nationalists.
Of course it is.
It just made me laugh for a second because we're fed all of our life that, well, especially our generation was fed that like Muslims are the only terrorists that are out there. But like, it's funny that it's actually freaking white people.
90% of the mass shootings are right wingers.
I know that. And I mean, who do you see driving trucks into crowds? Do you see somebody fighting for human rights driving a truck in a crowd? No, you don't. But it just made me laugh for a second, just at the pure irony of it.
Work with Congress and impacted community members to draft and pass the Justice for Cancer Alley Act that will include compensation and free healthcare in perpetuity for victims in this region who have been subjected to environmentally racist practice for decades. Coordinate with Black-led formations, including but not limited to the Black Hive at Movement for Black Lives to codify proposals and demands included in their Black Climate Mandate. Coordinate with Black-led formations, including but not limited to the Black Alliance for Peace to promulgate their zone of peace strategies that combat and dismantle larger structures and interests that generate war and state violence, colonialism, patriarchy, capitalism, and all forms of imperialism, both domestically and internationally.
So yes, I am completely for reparations. It's the redlining, the zoning and stuff that they did afterwards.
Way out. They still do that shit.
Oh, I know. And I was not aware that that was something that they actually ended up doing. That you fight in a war, you're guaranteed to come live in this nice cul-de-sac, but then they only gave those nice houses to white people, and they like still did segregation. And I wasn't aware of that one specifically, but yeah, just the more you learn about what we've done, the worse we are.
The more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know, and the more you learn, that's just all bad. It's mostly bad.
That's why people that are generally highly educated have a tendency to be depressed, such as, let's throw out Einstein, for example. Very, very smart man. Could never wear the same colored socks. Always wore 2 different shoes. Very, very depressed individual. It's because you can see what Jill Stein sees.
You can see
how to fix it. But nobody wants to do it.
It sucks when you can see the solutions and there's just no movement towards it.
Yeah.
Sure.
A Jill Stein administration will guarantee the human rights of the 2SL LGBTQIA+ community. Violent attacks on transgender women, particularly Black and other transgender women of color, recent stripping of state protections, lack of legal protections after negative court rulings, and long-standing historical inequities continue. We will end the acceptance of a violent culture that devalues the humanity of our 2SL LGBTQIA+ siblings. We will fight for the liberation of 2SL LGBTQIA+ people around the world. And with the Jill Stein administration, here's how. Support the Equality Act, the Pride Act, the Every Child Deserves a Family Act, and other bills to prohibit discrimination by the U.S., the military, state or local governments, or private industries. Support the PrEP Access and Coverage Act until universal health care is implemented. Develop and implement 2SLGBTQIA+ inclusive public education to combat bullying. That would be amazing. Include 2SLGBTQIA+ history in school curricula. Provide school and community trainings and 2SLGBTQIA+ specific school counseling. That would be amazing. Federally prohibit the harmful practice of conversion therapy. That I can't believe that's even still a thing. Fund housing relief programs for 2SLGBTQIA+ youth who are disproportionately represented in unsheltered populations. Remove punitive and cumbersome legal name change requirements and fees. Declare trans murder and suicide rates a national emergency. How is that not? Degender or add non-binary gender options to all federal public documents. degender school dress codes, and guarantee protections from discrimination as a result of dress in workplaces. Publish the original Equal Rights Amendment in the National Archives, effectively bringing it into law. Publish the original Equal Rights Amendment in the National Archives, effectively bringing it into law. Prohibit insurance companies from denying trans-affirming procedures. Remove trans medicalist language from all educational materials relating to trans individuals. Specifically, prohibit disciplining or firing trans employees for acknowledging their gender or pronouns with customers, clients, or other individuals in the workplace. Legally prohibit multilative surgeries on intersex infants. Pass legislation to mandate that police adopt policies to ensure fair interactions with transgender people, especially transgender women of color who are disproportionately impacted by disparities in policing. Outlaw misgendered imprisonment nationwide and end gay panic and trans panic defense for violent crimes. How is that a defense? What, you panicked because you saw somebody gay? Like, come on, guys. Prevent and repeal any legislation that purports to protect religious liberty at the expense of the rights of others. I definitely do think that we do need some education, especially at the school level, because things are changing. And as things change, so should our education, so should our laws, so should the rule of the land. And in some cases, we do recognize thankfully, some of us recognize where things have been done so horribly wrong historically and how they can go about being fixed. And one of those things is that in a lot of these, in my opinion, it does start with education, which of course she does full education from K to college. So I think starting with education can start fixing a lot of problems, like the fact that we don't have enough doctors. Everybody worries that if there's a nationalized healthcare, then there's not enough doctors. But if we have nationalized education, then we have more people that have the potential to become doctors, to be able to become doctors, and not be pushed out just because they're from a poor family, or a family of color, or a family of natives. It's not fair to do that. We need to start teaching where we went wrong and how we need to fix it. And Jill Stein sees how to fix it and wants to do that. The more you read, the better she gets.
I know, I keep thinking when we go to a stopping point, but it's like, after this, she's probably going to talk about, like, houses or something.
She's literally trying to help everyone. You know, what our government's supposed to do. She wants to improve the quality of lives to every American citizen and potential citizen.
What's more patriotic than that?
Nothing.
What's more patriotic than taking care of your neighbor?
At the end of what I was talking about, I just don't see how AOC can sit there and think she can talk shit, because this is a good person.
Right.
Who wants to do good things, and all you did was get in there and start collecting a paycheck and shut your fucking trap.
Yeah, you got in there and you got real quiet.
So. It pissed me off. I really had high hopes for her.
It's, as a leftist, you learn to stop getting your hopes up.
If it comes down to the blue, yeah, fuck you.
A Jill Stein administration will guarantee as a human right that every person with visible or invisible disabilities is free from ableist policies that harm and isolate them. We commit to ending disparities in pay, benefits, housing, healthcare, and education, and commit to disability inclusion and representation to ensure that all people can contribute their talents and skills as full members of a diverse and thriving society. Here's how.
Yeah, like this already.
Yeah, it pisses me off.
Because I'm like, invisible disability. I love people being like, there's nothing wrong with you. Yeah.
I learned when we talked about endometriosis, we talked about how, like, basically men just ignored
women
entirely until just like the last 40 years, maybe.
When they opened them up and they were like, what is this shit?
Yeah.
What is this? Why is everything so sticky in here?
Work towards economic security for people with disabilities by ensuring opportunities to partake fully in the economy at a fair wage and to enable financial security for all. Make sure that technology is accessible and supports the goals of the diverse lives of people with disabilities. Help children with disabilities and their families by providing life-changing early interventions and getting them valuable access to education. Defend the civil liberties of people with disabilities in areas like criminal justice, voting, physical and mental health, parental rights, and marriage equality. End all exceptions in wage laws and workplace protections for individuals with disabilities. Expand Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, and Supplemental Social Security Insurance, or Supplemental Social Security Income, SSI, to a living wage of greater than 10% of regional cost of living calculations. Expand access to Social Security, including assistance to public lawyers and SSDI application. Eliminate SSI waiting periods and disability proof requirements. Update the Americans with Disability Act with updates to be informed by people with the disabled community. Fully fund the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Pass the Disabilities Integration Act. Expand funding for aging and disability resource centers. Ratify the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Ensure that disabled immigrants are afforded the same immigration rights as non-disabled immigrants. Federally invest in upgrading all existing public housing and public school to ADA accessibility standards. Provide federal funding to meet ADA accessibility and accommodation requests by individual residents, students, and faculty. Create a federal disabilities education services agency to offer public schools resources and training to support students with disabilities. Pass a permanent money follows the person program to resist institutionalization and ensure a right to return to homes and community.
Yes.
Eliminate small business exemptions to the ADA. Appropriate federal funds to achieve compliance by small businesses. Establish federal marriage equality to eliminate marriage penalties for individuals with disabilities. Please. Ensure opioid pain management protections for those with chronic and debilitating pain.
Please.
Ensure a federal jobs guarantee cover with people with disabilities, particularly with respect to limited work schedules and non-traditional job roles.
Yeah, women's rights. We have to keep going. The disabilities one, I do want to say that the national average on a disability being reviewed, I'm not saying approved, I'm saying reviewed, is 230 to 300 days. Now, imagine that you become disabled
Yeah.
due to some kind of, let's say, physical thing at your work. Your leg gets chopped off, you lose an arm, you're now disabled, you can't do the same kind of work you used to be able to do. Now what? Now you're going to have to wait 230 to 300 days before you pay your mortgage, your rent, your utilities, your food, your clothes, deodorant, shampoo, toothpaste. You're going to wait 230 to 300 days for that. No, you can't. You can't.
Impossible. Unless you have lots of savings and you're going to go through it. So
That's why disabled people end up on the streets. And then they can't even get if their disability even got approved, it's
that's
too
an
late.
address to get the check.
Yeah, or they're going to send it there, and the person that gets it's going to send it back to trash it.
Yeah.
So it's hopeless at the current moment. So the disability.
It's a big thing to get the asset limitations on the SSI up to $10,000 per person. Also, to make it just marriage, not a penalty at all, would be nice.
Yeah, that's so stupid. And there were the institutionalized about institutionalization. There's something about that.
Yeah, protections against
Because they take advantage of you.
Yeah.
They make you sign your rights over without even being completely aware of what your rights are. The opioid pain management protections for those with chronic and debilitating pain, yes, please, because, I think it's a shame that because of the opioid crisis, a crisis that the U.S. government
not everyone, either your choice is be in pain or take street drugs or become an alcoholic.
Or suicide.
Or suicide. That's
Those
your choices.
are the rates.
That's your choices. Because the ER, they're not going to give you shit.
It doesn't matter what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
You could have your leg cut off at work. Guess what?
You're going to get
there's some ibuprofen.
just enough to them to operate on you, and then afterwards they might give you like something, and then when that runs
like 2
out,
days, 3 days,
you have to try to go to your primary, try to get something. Like it's hard, and they make it hard, and then when you go to the pharmacy, they make it hard. So good luck.
There's people with chronic pain. Not everybody's abusing having opioids. That's not the case. Some people are at risk for abuse, and they do get talked to about it. The doctor does make that decision of do the benefits outweigh the risks.
I think everyone knows by now that opioids are addictive.
Well, not being in pain's addictive.
Being able to use your body as you will is pretty fucking addictive, dude.
For the record, if somebody just gave me opioids, I could go back to work. That's all. I'm half alive standing here right now. I'm on fire. I'm being stabbed. I'm in so much pain, but I'm here doing this at the moment because I can stand, I can move, I can take a break and go lay down, because laying down is the only way I have any kind of normality to my life at this point. So this is an emergency situation. It's hurt us greatly just trying to do things the correct way.
And it hurts so many people.
And so many people get so much worse off.
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely need to do something. Where the systems fail, we need to fix them. It's not that hard to understand. Invest in your people, they will invest in you.
Why don't we just try it? Just fucking try. We haven't tried since Reagan. Like, why don't we just fucking try?
It's because it has that S word on it.
Who the fuck cares? Nobody's scared of socialism anymore. Nobody fucking cares.
The old white people aren't. They're the ones in charge.
They don't know what the fuck they're even talking about, dude. Okay. I'm not going to go on a tangent. We're just going to read this.
Your turn, right? My turn.
Your turn.
My turn.
Do you want to sit down?
No. Women's rights are human rights. As women's freedoms, protections, and rights are continually under assault by extremist groups, we will defend and codify women's full rights once and for all. A Jill Stein administration will publish the Equal Rights Amendment, pass the Paycheck Fairness Act, H.R. 7, to end pay discrimination and ensure equal pay for equal work, pass the 2021 Violence Against Women Act, ensure that domestic abusers cannot own or buy a gun. Oh, that's cool. Federally fund and expedite all rape kit testing. Yeah, that should happen. There's different police departments that have rape kits that are just sitting on their shelves. So yeah, that would be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Codify Roe v. Wade. Fucking please, dude. Like, how is that not already done? Why are we still having these discussions? I hate it so much. Ensure full reproductive rights and bodily autonomy for women. Repeal the Hyde Amendment. Fund free birth control administration products. That would save women a couple hundred a year. Just saying, we didn't choose that. We didn't think that. It's not our fault. Repeal FOSTA SESTA, which puts sex workers at risk. Decriminalize sex work. Expand the Special Supplement Nutrition Program for Women's, Infants, and Children, or WIC. Protect and enforce Title IX. Ensure prosecution of sexual harassment and violence in the workplace and the military. Yeah, instead of covering up like the military has famously been doing. The liberation of women and men from the bonds of patriarchy is essential to the work of building a peaceful, just, and ecological society. Petra Kelly.
I'm a feminist.
You as a man know that my rights are my rights, and that you're not going to like tell me what my bodily autonomy.
Immigrants' rights are human rights. For hundreds of years, immigrants have contributed immensely to the United States, despite facing constant exploitation, discrimination, xenophobia, and scapegoating. For decades, U.S. foreign policies of war intervention and the war on drugs have driven many immigrants to leave their homes under duress to arrive here in dire need. The Wall Street parties and their wealthy backers use immigrants as essential labor, while denying them the human rights and dignity that everyone deserves. The time to completely overhaul this broken and abusive immigration system, as well as the unjust policies driving people to leave their homes. We need a comprehensive immigration policy and properly funded institutions to ensure a timely, ethical, transparent, and dignified path to citizenship for immigrants.
Timely being a key thing in there, because the immigration applications get so far backed up, they get like years upon years backed up. So timely would be a huge thing, because we're deporting people who have already reapplied for their citizenship, reapplied for their visa, and we're deporting them because we're taking too long.
It's by design.
It's
racist, yeah.
This is again one of those things that it's like, I can't believe we're having this discussion. How is this still a thing?
Because the Democrats capitulate to the right on the border.
But
that's why.
Oh God, it's 20.
Because it's literally the Democrats' fault. Because Obama was like, I'm the deporter in chief. See? And, Biden's like, hey, Jack, I'm going to deport him too. And then Kamala's just like, do not come.
Never come. Ever.
Do not come.
Do not come.
Do not come.
Yeah.
Do not come. And then Trump, of course, says that he wants to deport them while he, one, marries one, and two, which there's nothing wrong with marrying somebody from a different country. I'm not saying that, but it's hypocritical. Also,
he's
employs them.
Like, there's nothing you can say about Trump that's not like he's a hypocrite on some level.
He employs immigrants, underpays them, and threatens to call ICE if they try to say anything.
He doesn't even feel like he has to. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had literally not a single leader who has done anything for the immigration in the recent years on a positive note, because we are a vast majority immigrants. Again, I'm part European Irish. You think that was native to freaking Oklahoma, California? They're not. They weren't originally from here. So that means they were
immigrants.
And they were actually colonists. So, what's the big deal? We disable these countries, make them unstable, and then get mad at them when they come here for help.
Yeah.
But at the same time, use the ones that we allow. It's just ridiculous. Because what? We think that they're peddling drugs over. You know what?
Hopefully.
Peddle me some
Fuck.
fucking drugs over.
I don't got any good drugs over here, man.
That's what happens when you have an opioid crisis. That's what happens when you cause the destabilization.
Civilization.
Yes, it's our fault.
And dignified path to citizenship for immigrants, asylum seekers, and refugees. Border policy should move away from detention and enforcement response toward humane and effective asylum processing. This includes full support and funding for coordinated civil society response, including social and legal service providers. Instead of jailing migrants and asylum seekers, we will create non-custodial humanitarian reception centers at the border. Migrants should be processed rapidly to screen for significant criminal records. Once processed, migrants should have papers to begin work immediately, making them an invaluable resource for communities.
Absolutely, they should get their visas to work immediately because you cannot do anything in this country if you do not work first and foremost.
Right.
And everybody is more than aware that if you don't have a job, you're just fucked in life.
Okay, so abolish ICE. Prosecute all ICE and custom border protection agents who have committed human rights violations. Expand the number of visas available to immigrants. End the war on drugs. Fully staff and fund immigration courts. Today we face a worsening global climate crisis that threatens the future of human life on Earth. 2023 was the hottest year on record. The 10 hottest years on record have all occurred in the past decade. This accelerating global heating is wreaking havoc on our ecosystems, leading to bigger and deadlier fires, floods, megastorms, droughts, and heat waves. Environmental and climate injustice are disproportionately harming Black, Brown, low-income, and indigenous communities across the country and around the world. Yet despite this existential emergency, the last few years have seen massive expansions in fossil fuel planning, infrastructure, and production, with 2023 breaking the record for U.S. oil production. The Wall Street parties, funded by corporate polluters, are driving us over the climate cliff. We all have a human right to a livable planet with a stable climate, healthy food, clean water and air, and living soil. We need a real Green New Deal to transition rapidly from an economic system that is destroying our only home to a sustainable society built around human needs of protecting life on Earth. We need to act now so that our children and future generations can not only survive, but thrive. A Jill Stein administration will advance the eco-socialist Real Green New Deal that the Green Party made its signature issue in the 2010s. It is imperative to distinguish the Green New Deal from the non-binding Green New Deal resolution proposed in recent years. For instance, the non-binding Green New Deal does not call for a ban on fracking or a prohibition of new fossil fuel infrastructure. Moreover, the inadequacy of the non-binding Green New Deal to address climate and ecological crisis is further demonstrated by the following.
Extends the timeline for zero emissions by 15 to 20 years to 2050. Redefines zero emissions to net zero to enable the continued burning of fossil fuels with false climate solutions like carbon capture and sequestration and direct air capture. Replaces tenet of democratic public ownership and planning in the energy, transportation, manufacturing, and housing sectors with unreliable market-based incentives featuring public subsidies for private corporations. Does not stipulate the phase out of nuclear power, a scam which is dirty, dangerous, unaffordable, uninsurable, and has no solution to the problem of toxic nuclear waste. No mention of the need for deep cuts in military spending and operations to help pay for the Green New Deal and slash emissions in the process. In short, we need the economic democracy of an eco-socialist, real Green New Deal to plan and coordinate the complicated transition to 100% clean energy and zero emissions on the rapid timescale required to save our climate. An eco-socialist approach is also necessary to fairly compensate and center people, primarily Black, Indigenous, and the poor, who were systematically excluded from the original New Deal, as well as redress the lasting impacts of profoundly racist policies that derive from it, including, but not limited to, redlining, which acted as a catalyst for the legacy of environmental racism.
We're just going to read a few of these. Reduce the size and the budget of the military, as hyper-military foreign policy and military-dependent domestic economy are also major contributors to the climate emergency, while also ensuring the military transitions to green energy.
Ensure a just transition for workers shifting from the fossil fuel and other extractive and polluting industries to alternative work of their choosing. I know you said we're going to do a few of these. I just seen one that I wanted.
And all forms of subsidies to the fossil fuel industry.
Take all railroad systems into democratic public ownership, including freight, commuter, and high-speed rail.
Support a constitutional green amendment to guarantee the right of all people to clean air, land, and water.
Invest in renewable energy infrastructure across the nation, including wind, solar, tidal, geothermal, battery, and energy storage, and green hydrogen for limited uses where appropriate.
Ban all forms of fracking, mountaintop removal, tar sands mining, and new fossil fuel infrastructure.
Build a nationwide, publicly owned, smart electricity grid.
Texas needs it.
Yeah, bad. That's why I wanted to throw that one out there. Like, we know who can use that. Address the crisis of contaminated water supplies with national efforts to remove lead, PFAS, and other toxins from our water.
It's killing us. It's killing us.
What the fuck is Cancer Alley? Oops, sorry. What is Cancer Alley?
I don't know.
That's,
We'll have to look into it.
that's a scary thing.
Write it down. The bipartisan endless war machine enriches military contractors, lobbyists, and politicians, while it fuels devastation around the world and impoverishes our own people. The Pentagon budget consumes over half of the discretionary federal budget, and real U.S. military spending is over $1 trillion per year. The military-industrial complex, aided by its accomplices in both war parties, media, intelligence agencies, and beyond, have become a global empire that is profoundly destructive around the world and here at home. Everyone has a human right to live in peace and dignity, free from violence and oppression. We must end the endless wars and create a new foreign policy based on diplomacy, international law, and human rights to lead the way to a new era of peace and cooperation.
End existing wars, military actions, proxy wars, and secret wars.
Cut military spending by 50 to 75% and ensure a just transition that replaces military jobs with Green New Deal jobs.
Wait, go back up. I want the first one too. Establish a foreign policy based on diplomacy, international law, and human rights. Literally almost every one of these topics start with, it's a basic human right. And it's so sad that you have to start that off like that, because it's just like, duh.
Close the vast majority of the 700 plus foreign U.S. military bases.
Stop U.S. support and armed sales to human rights abusers.
For God's sakes. Lead on global nuclear disarmament.
We really should.
End unilateral economic sanctions that primarily harm civilian populations.
Demand an immediate ceasefire in Israel and Palestine. An end to the blockade of Gaza. Immediate humanitarian and medical relief, and release of hostages and political prisoners.
Immediately end all military aid to Israel and adopt sanctions until Israel complies with international law to put an end to decades of violence, illegal occupation, displacement, dispossession, apartheid, and ethnic cleansing. Genocide.
Yeah.
That's what ethnic cleansing is. That's genocide.
Mm-hmm. Remove U.S. troops from Iraq and Syria.
Stop fueling the war between Russia and Ukraine and lead on negotiating a peaceful end.
End the embargo of Cuba and normalize relations.
End sanctions on Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela that amount to collective punishment of civilian populations.
End U.S. interventionist policies that drive people to become migrant refugees.
End the failed drug wars and stop regime change attempts against foreign governments. Please stop doing that.
Close the Guantanamo Bay detention camp.
Ban the use of killer drones, robots, and artificial intelligence.
Ensure family-supporting wages and benefits for military service members instead of lying that you're going to do it and then making them be homeless.
Fully fund veterans programs and benefits, including healthcare, mental health, housing, job training, for a transition to civilian life.
And protect the rights of service members, including constituous objectors. If AOC, what do you have to say now? What do you have to say? That it's better to be a sellout? Or is it better to stand for something you believe in, even if it takes 12 years, 20 years, 30 years?
There's people out there that do it.
So
without selling out.
It's a little spicy, but I think you should stand by your word. Or maybe keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, if the Democrats had a better platform that included an embargo of arms to Israel, or
just to start there,
a ceasefire, or if they would have included anything in the DNC about Palestinians, or if they thought the Palestinians' lives were the same value as Israeli lives.
And as American lives. We're all the same. We're all on the same planet, dude.
And also, the Democrats, the platform that they're fighting for, well, they don't protect the reforms that they do get. So why didn't they protect Roe v. Wade? We have a Democratic president, and he's been in there. I mean, the Supreme Court is the one that did it ultimately, but they did nothing for 50 years to protect the reform. So
why didn't Obama? So why didn't?
yeah. So like, even if they do fight for what they say they're going to fight for, there's no real guarantee that they're going to fight to protect it. There's a lot of things that Trump undid that Biden hasn't moved on. He's kept a lot of the border policies. He didn't get back into the Iran nuclear agreement like he said he would. And
so it's a virtue signal. So
yeah,
even if they change things, it's just a dial
it's
going
just
back
a
and forth.
campaign. It's just a campaign to them. Is what I'm trying to say.
It's just a back and forth. Like Trump will, a Republican will take away, and then a Dem will get in there and they'll give just a little bit back, so you think that they're doing something, but
you're a lot of it's just promising to undo
what you let happen.
What you let happen.
Or what you did.
That's not progress. That's the illusion of progress. That's like if I make a situation and then I make the solution to that situation, the situation didn't have to happen. It could have been solved beforehand.
I mean,
there's a few people that I believe that once they got in office that they would genuinely try to enact their policies. And Jill Stein is one of those people.
AOC was one of those people.
Maybe like 8 years ago.
No, like you said, before she got in office.
Yeah.
She was someone I did believe in. She turned out to be just a huge disappointment. So, if anything, you're just one of the reasons on why I won't vote blue. Because all I see is a sellout. All I see is capitalism. All I see is, you're not going to help me.
You're supposed to be the one pushing, supposed to be the left flank of the Democratic Party. You are a disgrace. You are not representing the left flank of the Democratic Party at all. You should be pushing Kamala, Joe to the left. You are not. You should.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're just placating to them. You're trying to play the game. You're trying to stay in office. Your political careers now. Congratulations.
And let us remember when Kamala said, "I'm speaking." Do you understand that? She said, "I am speaking. What I have to say is more important than the voice of the people."
Than the voice of thousands of dead Palestinians perpetuated by your president's actions.
You are supposed to win our vote. We're not supposed to feel lucky to vote for you. You're supposed to feel lucky to earn our vote. You ain't earned shit, bro.
All right. We've been standing for too long.
Yeah, my fucking shit hurts anyway down.
And we hurt. We are very old. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm broken.